The Palestine Liberation Organization. Led by Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, the PLO had become a functioning government for the people of Palestine, recognized by over 100 nations as the sole representative of the Palestinians. The PLO had its moments of peace, especially when it recognized Israel's right to exist. But soon there was a fallout. The PLO broke into a more violent faction that did not believe in peace with Israel and a moderate faction. An internal war ensued, and Hamas grabbed hold of Gaza in the west of Israel, and the moderates of the PLO were left to rule the West Bank. Today, the PLO is chaired by Mahmoud Abbas, a moderate leader from a moderate party, which is despised by radicals running the movement through violence. But Abbas's rule is waning. Hamas, the violent faction, is rising, and so are other radical groups. And it is these very radical groups that were the reason behind the breakup of the PLO that now want to take over it. Hi, and welcome to TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Shubhangi, and in this video, I will tell you about a new strategy being played out by Hamas to take over all Palestinian territories. Let's begin. Radical factions in Palestine are looking to overhaul the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, and they have a clear strategy: edge out moderate factions including Fatah and take over the PLO. In fact, Damascus-based Islamic Jihad, which helps Hamas in carrying out terrorist activities in Gaza, is actively pushing for reviving the Palestinian National Project and reforming the PLO. The IJ's agenda makes all the more sense as Fatah, which presently runs the West Bank, is losing political popularity. Sheikh Nafez Azam, a member of the IJ Political Bureau, made it clear that the movement will look at recalibrating the PLO during the upcoming meeting of Palestinian factions at Cairo. Egypt is hosting all Palestinian factions to help them overcome their internal dissensions and agree on a unified agenda, but Hamas and the IJ are looking at the meeting as an opportunity to take complete control of the PLO. Azam said, "What concerns us in the upcoming Cairo meeting and what we must intensify efforts for is reviving the Palestinian National Project and reforming the PLO so that it becomes an umbrella organization representing all the people in line with their hopes and aspirations. This is one of the most important priorities for us during the Cairo meeting, in parallel with working to reach a comprehensive national vision that protects the Palestinian people's rights and defends their constants." The latest remarks by the political wing of IJ, which cooperates with Hamas, shows how radical factions in Palestine want to take complete control of the situation. Presently, neither Hamas nor the IJ find representation in the PLO, but they feel that with speculations of Fatah losing political support, the PLO itself can be reworked. For Hamas and IJ, taking over the PLO is actually a means to grab power in the Palestinian territories controlled by Fatah, namely West Bank. For a long time, the PLO, under the leadership of Yasser Arafat, enjoyed the status of the official government in Palestine and was also recognized as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. Yet the use of violent activities directed against Israeli citizens had led to PLO's fallout with the US and Israel. The US designated PLO as a terrorist organization in 1987. Hamas too came into the picture in 1987 itself. Going ahead, while the PLO recognized Israel's right to exist, Hamas refused to accept the legitimacy of the Israeli state. In 2006, things went further south when Hamas won a slim majority in the Palestinian Authority legislative elections, putting the radical body in command of both the West Bank and Gaza. But Hamas's refusal to accept previous deals between Israel and the Palestinian Authority led to a PLO-Hamas war that ended with Hamas gaining control over Gaza, while PLO and the Fatah were restricted to the West Bank. But now, taking control over PLO would be a priority for Hamas because it wants to challenge Fatah in the West Bank. Fatah has been facing internal dissensions, and with breakaway factions eating into its vote share, the Mahmoud Abbas-led party is expected to fall down to the second or the third spot if elections in Palestinian territories are to be held today. Abbas is himself facing anti-incumbency in West Bank. He is seen as a spineless man by the Palestinians right now, whose government is submissive before Israel at best and complicit at worst. In fact, Fatah is holding on to power by deferring elections time and again only. Hamas is therefore trying to project itself as the one fighting Israel and making all the sacrifices for the Palestinian movement. Hamas has been piling pressure on Fatah, and its recent activities in the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound as well as rocket attacks against Israel were again supposed to make Fatah look bad. In this sense, the IJ and Hamas are looking at the Cairo meeting as an endgame to relaunch the PLO and take out all the moderate factions from the umbrella body.